What's up, guys? This is Preheat. So today's video is going to be about Evoker, and I've been coming out with a lot of Evoker videos talking about how hyped I am for certain things and just being very excited, showing off all the cool stuff it can do. I've probably put in over on just my most recent character, I've put in around 100 hours on Evoker, and previously, before they did the character wipe, I was also playing quite a bit. So I am well over 100 hours played on Evoker, and I think at this point I have a pretty good sense for how the class plays and how to, perform your AoE rotation correctly, single target, and just what you're capable of. And throughout all that time, I kind of felt like Evoker did okay defensively, but I wasn't really entirely sure because I didn't really have content that was hard enough for me to really, see what it was capable of or like see a problem, right? Because you have to be able to take enough damage for you to actually die to be able to see if the class is tanky or not. So I started getting a sense that Evoker might not be that tanky in the mythic testing for Teros or whatever his name is, the rock guy. Was noticing that I was taking it felt like I was taking a lot more damage than I should be even when popping my cooldown, my defensive cooldown, the Obsidian Scales, right? And, Renewing Blaze seemed pretty good though, right? It's a very strong heal, but it is kind of a long heal as well. It's a 14-second thing, so it's not going to save you if there's something you need to live, 2 seconds and you're dead, right? A situation like that, it's not going to do anything for you. So, yeah, I started to get a sense that Evoker was maybe not that tanky, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I wanted to make sure I was doing my due diligence and trying to play around with everything I could to try and fix it, right? So I'm going to show my talents here. This is what I'm running currently. So I have every defensive node in the tree. And that includes like the health percentage one, that includes the magic reduction one. I'm also obviously running Obsidian Scales. I'm running the cooldown reduction on the Obsidian Scales. I'm also running Renewing Blaze, obviously. This is a very good talent if you have like long ticking damage over an extended period. Very, very strong heal in that situation. Stuff like Verdant Embrace as well. Obviously, I'm taking Twin, the Twin Absorb Shield talent as well. These are all talents that I'm picking up, and I definitely tested Source of Magic a bit and the healing aspect of it too, the Regenerative Magic. That one didn't really seem to do much at all. It seems like even best case scenario, it's pretty mid. So I don't think that this talent is something you would ever really want to take on your own. It'd be like if the healers force you to take it. But anyways, I don't want to get too much into the talents. I just want to kind of summarize my experience. So running completely tanky build, the tankiest build you can possibly make, right? Running full avoidance and chance on all of my gear that can have avoidance. Running a Verse Flask. I'm Verse Flasking just for the damage taken reduction, right? And I'm doing these Mythic plus 15s, and I'm noticing that I'm just dead. Like anytime there's damage, I'm popping my cooldowns, and it isn't just one cooldown, right? Because as Evoker, if you just pop Obsidian Scales, you're probably gonna die still, right? So I'm popping Obsidian Scales, I'm popping Renewing Blaze, I'm popping Zephyr. I'm grabbing someone with Rescue just to get an Absorb Shield. I'm really embracing myself for 10% healing. I'm, using Emerald Blossom for the free 5% healing instant cast. It's just not enough, right? Even with Health Stones, with Health Pots, with all of this together, I get a sense that Evoker might actually be, if not the squishiest class, it's at least tied for squishiest class. Like, it's got to be down there at the very bottom of the barrel, like the lowest tier could possibly be, because you just die to everything. And there's really not many things you can do about it. It's actually kind of frustrating because you have to stack your defensive cooldowns to be able to survive mechanics that everyone else can just press one button to survive. And then the next time it comes around, you don't have any buttons to press, right? So what we ended up doing in a lot of my Mythic Plus runs was we had a Holy Priest like bubble sack me, right? For like certain mechanics. But I mean, that only works once, right? You can only do that once per fight unless it's like a longer fight. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really wanted to do as much as I could to not jump to the conclusion that it was squishy. I know everyone else was saying it was squishy online. Everyone was complaining about it, but I wasn't sold on it. I wanted to make sure I saw it for myself, and I did everything I could to try and combat it. And I will say that I am trying probably 5 times as much to survive as I do on Mage, like at least. And I'm still just dying to pretty much anything. And I think this is really a problem for the class because, a lot of people picking up Evoker are going to be turned off by this, right? This is going to dissuade a lot of players from playing Evoker if they're picking up as an alt. Maybe they don't necessarily know everything that they're doing, right? The line is so thin. The margin of error on Evoker is so razor thin. Even in just doing like a weekly plus 15k. that you're going to be dead on the ground constantly unless you know exactly what you're doing, unless you're playing out every cooldown ahead of time. And even in those situations, you're probably going to still die a lot more than everyone else. And it's just because Evoker doesn't really have a good defensive. You just have your one defensive, which you have to pay 2 talents to upgrade, right? Because you have to get the slow one, and then you get the cooldown reduction on it. So it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. It's only 20% reduction. I die through this buff pretty much every time I use it during damage events. So it's not even enough, right? Like I'm still dying even though I'm using this, and I'm spam healing myself at the same time, and I'm still dying. You know, using health stones, using health pots, rescuing people at the last second, trying everything I can to survive. It is just nowhere even close. It's not even in the same universe as other classes when it comes to defensiveness. And it isn't an issue with male gear. I know a lot of people say, well, it's male, so it should be squishy. Well, shaman aren't that squishy. Right? Shaman seem to be pretty tanky right now. Also, I was doing these dungeons with a hunter, and the hunter didn't really seem to have any issues. It was really just me. And I don't think it was necessarily my play because I'm pressing the buttons when I need to, right? I really just have the one personal. My Zephyr I was using, you know, defensively as well as kind of like a personal, but sometimes we would use it as like a, you know, like a party external. But I mean, aside from that, you just don't really have anything, right? You just have your health pot and your health stone, and that's it. There's no other button for you to press. It's extremely frustrating to be in a situation where you know a damage event is happening, you've allocated your cooldown to it, it is a 1.5 minute cooldown at best, and then you try the next round, right? Because it's gonna, you know, the damage event's gonna happen 30 seconds later or whatever, depending on the mechanic. You pop your Renewing Blaze, you're constantly spamming your heals on yourself, you're just trying everything you can to survive, and it's just nowhere near enough. It's just nowhere near enough, and Evoker just feels so squishy, like so unbelievably squishy. And I feel like I need to be upfront with y'all about this because I've been hyping up Evoker a lot, and this is really something that I think will be a deal breaker for a lot of people. So I really hope that something is done. I haven't really seen many people banging the drum on this, like kind of talking about the issues that they're having, at least not like bigger content creators. And I understand, like, you're definitely putting yourself out there. If you're like admitting to dying a lot, like people are going to flame you. That's just immediately what the trolls are going to do. So it's kind of hard to talk about survivability issues without just getting dogpiled online. And I've even seen that with like some of my recent tweets talking about Evoker being in a state where it just doesn't seem like that tanky, and it seems like you're just dead, right? Like you're just very easy to kill. But I don't know. I don't really care too much about that. I'm just going to speak my mind on this and try to give y'all the truth as best I can. And I really do think that Evoker has some serious survivability issues. I don't think this is something you can just outskill. I mean, you just don't have buttons to press, right? Like it's just a matter of how many buttons do you have, okay? You don't really have anything. You have this 20% reduction on a 1.5 minute cooldown, and aside from that, you've got a 10% heal on a 20-second cooldown, right? Verdant Embrace, you can use it on yourself. You've got a 5% heal with Emerald Blossom that you can use on the even longer cooldown. And it literally heals you for 10k if your health is 200k, right? You've got your barrier that lasts 5 seconds whenever you rescue someone. You're really going to be picking up someone every time there's a damage event, and it's every minute, right? It's only 30% of your health, so it's only a 60k absorb. So anyways, I don't want this video to be like too doomer on Evoker. I mean, I still think Evoker is a fantastic class. I'm definitely going to still be maining it too, right? I'm going to be playing it. But I just wanted to put this video out there because I really haven't seen many people talking about this. And I think it probably is just due to the fact that you have to admit that you're dying a lot if you're going to be talking about this survivability being a problem. And people are just going to flame you for that. But I don't care. I just want to put it out there. It's not tanky. Evoker is not tanky at all. It has huge survivability issues. We need like a big button to press, okay? If you're pressing all of your defensives every time a big damage event happens and you're still dying to it, and then you don't have those buttons up for the next time it comes around, what are you supposed to do? So I'm going to play a quick excerpt from one of my recent streams where I kind of talk about Evoker and how I feel about it, because I feel like it's going to be a good thing to kind of discuss since we're on the topic of tankiness. And, you know, I just want to kind of give this video a little bit of a silver lining as well. So, I don't know. I think I've seen enough. Like, the main reason I wanted to do Mythic Plus was just to see how tanky this class was, because I wasn't really thinking it was that bad going into Mythic Plus, honestly. Like, the ratings seem fine. But now that I've seen Mythic Plus, I think that this is actually like a huge problem. You could run Source of Magic, Regenerative Magic. Okay, dude. Yeah, we already tried that. That sounds terrible. It does nothing, dude. That thing is actually so unbelievably useless. It's only 10% of the healing, and it's only whenever you're below 50%. I die in almost every situation whenever I'm like, there's like a second in between when I'm alive and when I'm dead, below 50%. It's not going to make you take less damage, so it doesn't matter. It's the same shit as Renewing Blaze. It literally doesn't matter. Yeah, the worst part is, too, is like whenever you die in situations like this, like my first instinct is just to blame myself. Always. You know what I mean? There's always something better I could have done. Could have held stoned, could have held potted, could have done this, that, or the other, could have popped my defensive slightly sooner, could have done, you know, it's like this whole list of things. But at some point you gotta just like realize that you're playing a class that just doesn't have buttons or counterplays to situations. I like Renewing Blaze. I like the idea is very cool. And it's a great tool for a lot of situations. The issue is like if you're dying quickly, it does nothing for you. This is my impression so far. Okay, so obviously we keep hitting the nail with the hammer right on this, but it is just extremely weak when it comes to survivability. Okay, could go into that. I could rant about that for a bit. I think y'all already get the point though, right? I feel like everyone in chat understands just by watching how weak this class is at surviving. So let's not talk about survival for a bit. Let's talk about other stuff, okay? Because you have benefits, right? Like this class does bring something to the raid that like you would want. It's got really, really good incentives to heal the group. It's got nice utility. It provides interesting bonuses that no other class really has. And it's just kind of fun to play like all around. So I think Evoker does bring something to the table that other classes don't necessarily have. I'd say the biggest thing is probably Rescue. Even though it's kind of a meme ability and you mostly just use it to taxi the healer around. I could see this being very useful in progression for like specific mechanics if you needed to. It just seems like an ability that would just break the game in a lot of ways for certain things, okay? So it's very exciting. Renewing Blaze, like in theory, is very great. If Evoker was just more tanky in general, this would be so much of a better talent. The reason why this talent isn't as good as I had hoped is just because you're so bad at surviving that it doesn't really matter that you have the heal going, right? Like you're healing back the damage over 14 seconds, but it doesn't really matter because you're just going to die anyways with this up. Every single time you die with Renewing Blaze up, you look at the healing it did and it did no healing, basically. Like if you ever look at your death log when you had Renewing Blaze up, you'll see like one tick of it and it does like piss poor healing, right? Because it's over a long period. So even though it seems really good, and it is really good if you actually survive, the issue is you die in like 90% of cases. You pop Renewing Blaze and you get like one tick of it and then you die, right? So really the only way you can use Renewing Blaze effectively is if you use it before the damage events happen. You have to preemptively use it. Like, so it lasts 14 seconds. You want to use it basically 10 seconds before the big hit. And then you just want to pray that like the dot tick or the healing over time tick happens when you need it, right? Whenever you're not full health. Talents like this and Verdant Embrace, Panacea, or whatever this is, these talents used to be actually quite good, but the issue is that they nerfed Evoker healing like across the board by 40%, and then they gave Preservation a buff so that it basically does increase healing. And ever since they made that change, your heals are just dog shit. This heals you for 5%. It's a 5% instant heal. This is a 10% instant heal. These are my cooldowns. These are like my healing cooldowns that I should be able to use to survive. 10% heal, 5% heal. Okay? So that's not great. And then when it comes to other stuff, I mean, like Hover is a great ability. I love Hover a lot. I still don't really like that it's on the GCD, but at least it feels better than it did before. I'll say that the Absorb Shield from Twin Guardians also seems pretty neat, but it's kind of hard to use. Oppressing Roar feels fantastic. This ability feels like it's really like a perfect addition to your Mythic Plus group. And I love using this on big pulls because I feel like it's always useful, right? So I feel very useful with Depressing Roar. Also, stuff like Terror in the Skies makes me feel very useful as well because I'm always providing like a lot of basically Evoker's like the stop king, right? You've got a knockback, you've got your tail swipe, which knocks things up. You've got your deep breath, which stuns things, right? Like you've got just a lot of ways to stop the entire pack from doing shit. And I like that quite a bit, right? And then so other things I didn't really talk about. So Unravel's really good. I haven't been running it just because I'm literally going every defensive node and I just don't have points to spend, right? Because I'm grabbing everything defensive I can, basically. But Unravel is quite good. I wish I could run it. Same with like cooldown reduction on the tail swipe. I think this is really good as well. Stuff like Walloping Blow, really, really fantastic talents. These are all fantastic talents. Cauterizing Flame, right? These are all fantastic, but the problem is you can't take them because you're so squishy that you have to take every single defensive just to survive, right? And then you've got stuff like Source of Magic, which is just like passive mana regen from doing your empowers. This basically does the same amount of mana regen as a single target Sigil of Hope does across a fight, which is not a lot. Okay, and Sigil of Hope affects all the healers, not just one of the healers. And then the talent that comes from it, Regenerative Magic. We tested this a lot on the stream. This does basically nothing for you. Unless it's a fight like Lords of Dread, this is just a completely useless talent. I would go so far as to say it's useless because it's so situational. It's only 10% of their healing. It's only whenever you're below 50% health. It's like, it's never up when you need it, right? Because in 9 times out of 10, whenever you die, it's because you weren't topped, right? You're at 60%, you're at 70%. This isn't going to do anything for you in that situation, right? The only time this helps is if the healers are absolutely pumping and you're below 50%. So Lords of Dread, perfect example, right? In fact, Lords of Dread actually might be like Renewing Blaze being a 1-minute cooldown, and then Regenerative Magic on Lords of Dread might actually make Evoker one of the better classes on that boss. So long as you have like any sort of raid DR, right? As long as you have a raid DR for every swarm, you probably would do pretty good on that kind of fight, right? So I'm not saying that the tankiness is just like impossible and it's bad in every situation. I'm just saying in most situations it's bad, right? Just to be clear. In like 9 times out of 10, your survivability is absolute dog shit. It's just not made for that. But in that one case, you're actually kind of decent, right? But you're still probably not going to be as good as anyone with an immunity, anyone who actually has a damage reduction, right? So you're probably just mid at best. And then in most cases, you're actually terrible. When it comes to actual damage abilities, I do like this build a lot. This is like my dungeon build that I've been running. I went ahead and just dropped Firestorm altogether because it wasn't really doing much damage. I wasn't really into it. And I picked up Shattering Star. I think Shattering Star is actually quite good. It does pretty good on bosses. And like in my overall damage, it actually does like 3.9%. So Firestorm was doing 4% of my overall, just for reference. So it's actually the same. It's the same damage as Firestorm was doing overall. And it's better because it's prio damage, right? So it immediately has an edge because it's prio. As far as other talents go, I don't really think you would ever take off Heat Wave. You would never take off Catalyze. You're always going to want to get all the way down here to pick one of these, right? Feed the Flame or Everburning. But I think Feed the Flame is probably better right now. Burnout's something you're always going to want to run. Scintillation's always something you're going to want to run. Eternity Span you always want to use if there's 2 targets or higher. You're always going to want all your cooldown ones. That's just a given. You always want Eternity Surge. Disintegrate one you always want. Charge Blast is a little bit situational. It's pretty much if you're ever using... If there's ever like 3 targets in the fight, this is a really good talent to take. So 3 or more targets. Or if your Dragon Rage lines up really well with AoE, then it's a good talent to take. And then if you need like damage on a 1-minute cooldown or like a stun on a 1-minute cooldown, Onyx Legacy is a fantastic talent as well. I'd say that the Devastation talents themselves are all very pog. Like I'm super excited for the different builds. There isn't much in the way of other capstones you can really go though. So the build variety is stifled very heavily here by the fact that there's just a lot of talents that are really, really bad. Okay, so obviously Pyre damage is undertuned, so that makes volatility really bad. You would never really take like Honed Aggression really in any case because it's just like a 1% damage increase. It's just not worth it. And in terms of like relative strength, it's just very weak. Same with like stuff like Imminent Destruction. This is a very weak talent. Power Swell, extremely weak talent, right? And Iridescence is blocked behind Power Swell, so you can't even get to it. So you have like pretty much all of this stuff in the capstones, except for the stuff that I've talented, is just bad. And you'd pretty much never use it unless you just had one extra talent. So like maybe I would go Hoarded Power over Power Nexus if I wasn't doing dungeons, right? But I like Power Nexus more in dungeons. But that's really all I could see changing here. I think it's pretty much set in stone. And then for single target, obviously you don't have to go Eternity Span anymore, right? So you can go instead focusing Iris. And then single target, you could decide, you know what, actually, let's go for that Hoarded Power, right, instead of Charge Blast, because we won't really get much out of the Charge Blast in this situation. And you could probably go Onyx Legacy into Ruby Embers. And I think this is pretty much your single target build that you would use in most situations. Very, very similar, as you can tell. Pretty much the baseline has not changed at all. The only thing you're doing is you're giving up the AoE abilities for just like stuff that seems like it might be good in single target, right? But it may not necessarily be good. It's just stuff that's seemingly good, right? But I think overall, this is like a pretty decent build. I do like that Evoker doesn't have to give up much single target to get cleave. That's one really good thing about it. And Evoker has really good cleave. Like, the best thing about Evoker, in my opinion, just like as a class, the absolute best thing about Evoker is the fact that you do extremely good damage to adds to target swap too. Anytime there's a situation where there's a target swap that's happening, or you have the option to target swap, you are heavily incentivized to target swap, okay? It's actually like in your best interest to always be the first person to hit a new target. And it's because your mastery gives you just an insane amount of extra damage on those targets, right? So this is going to make it so that basically people who are good at Evoker are going to do way more damage than people who are not. Because it isn't just about rotation. It's about having your cooldowns up for that situation. It's about swapping quickly. It's about being proactive. It's about thinking ahead. It's about knowing like, okay, here are my cooldowns and this is what's going to happen for the first global. Here's what's going to happen for the second global, right? Because if you've got 30-second cooldowns and the target's at full health and you're hitting with those 30-second cooldowns, it's basically as if you did the full damage there, right? Because like if you use it later, right, you're going to get like so much less effectiveness out of it. So yeah, you want to always make sure you slam new health targets with like your biggest hits immediately because you'll get the most benefit out of your mastery. I tend to find like in mobs that die really quickly, the best thing they open with is like a Eternity Search. I think it does the most damage of like any big hit. And then obviously like stuff like Leaping Flames, Fire Breath, throwing out Pyres with Charge Blast. And then once the mobs get lower, you can finish them off with Deep Breath. Deep Breath is actually really nice to use as the mobs are low because it gets the full benefit of the mastery, right? So you don't have to necessarily use it right away unless you think mobs are going to die really fast or if you need a stun, okay? So this is like the biggest benefit or like silver lining I would say about Evoker so far is just the fact that you do extremely good AoE, like burst cleave, you do extremely good target swapping. You can like absolutely pump targets without even trying, without even having cooldowns up whenever they come out. And I like that quite a bit, right? Like a new target appears, you just start disintegrating it. You're going to be basically doing the same damage as someone who popped cooldowns on it because you're just doing 80% more damage without even adding anything else to the mix, right? Like without even using cooldowns, you're just doing 80% more damage with a good amount of mastery. So yeah, you don't really have to worry about like saving cooldowns for adds in the way of like your big cooldown like Dragon Rage. You can focus more on like the mini cooldowns. So that's going to be like Charge Blast. It's going to be like Eternity Surge. It's going to be Fire Breath. It's going to be Fire Breath charged all the way with Leaping Flames. It's going to be Pyre with the 20 stack of Charge Blast. There's just so many ways you can basically load the gun and have it ready to shoot as soon as the target comes out. And I'd say that that's the thing I like about Evoker the most because it really does very well at that. And then in addition to this, your best secondary stat is Mastery in most situations. And Mastery is also very good for this, right? Like it's very good for ad killing. It's very good for target swapping, right? So the fact that you're stacking Mastery and Mastery kind of has this crazy synergy with just being able to like kill stuff really quickly. It means that Evoker basically has this insane niche of like, you are just the target swap god. You are the ad prio god. And you will always kill those things and do basically all the damage without even trying. You don't even need to pop cooldowns. You're just going to do insane damage, right? So yeah, I mean like in summary, I think Evoker is very fun. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I think just the biggest issue right now is just the lack of survivability. And it's big enough to like really spoil the whole thing, you know? Because if you aren't able to survive, like, what are you doing? You're just dead. You can't, if you're dead, you can't do damage, right? So it is a make or break thing, right? Like the lack of survivability for Evoker is a make or break problem. Hopefully it gets addressed, but right now it just seems like it's just really bad. Like it's really frustrating and bad, and I don't know what else to really say about it. Anyways, I'm going to end this video just by directing you to my VODs. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, because I know in this video I'm just describing it, I'm not actually showing you the issues. If you want to see that, look at my VODs. Watch my Mythic Plus run of Ruby life pools. Watch my Azure Vault run. Watch my Mythic testing, right? These are going to give you an indication of what I'm talking about. So hopefully you can understand what I mean whenever I say Evoker is not that tanky, because it really does have it really is just very limited when it comes to defensive options. And you know, I really do hope that Blizzard sees this as a problem, and I hope that the community starts talking about it more, because I really haven't seen people talking about this much, except for like in the Evoker Discord. But anyways, that's all I really have for today. If you want more videos like this, obviously subscribe to see more of my content. Be sure to leave a like if you like this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.